Hi folks, happy Wednesday. I want to start by saying there will not be a town hall meeting this Friday. So this Friday there will be no town hall meeting. A few quick things today, however. So one of the things that you're hearing out there, and I just wanted to clarify it to say that it is real, is personal protective equipment shortages again. So if you remember way back in March and into early April, we were talking about our need to hoard the masks that we had and we were getting. And at that time, the mask usage was kind of evolving as to how often and so on the use of masks. But we were hoarding them because we didn't know if we were going to have enough for our healthcare workers at the time. Luckily, we were able to get over that hump, and at this point we have enough masks, or think we're going to have enough masks, but again, you never know. But again, as reflective of what's going on in the rest of the country, one of the challenges that we're having right now is gloves, and our ability to get gloves. And so we're starting to look at different vendors and different opportunities to get simple things like gloves. And so I say that because just to keep everybody informed that these are the realities that healthcare agencies, hospitals, nursing homes, healthcare centers are facing as we go through this pandemic. Just basic supplies. Again, the pandemic is raging throughout the southeast of the United States and into the west in California. And even though that ours is much less than where we were in April, which was very bad here as well, all of those issues have that ripple effect. So we're having a glove issue. Right now we have enough for several weeks, but again, because we're so sensitive to these possible personal protective equipment issues, we're making plans to make sure that we have these types of supplies on hand that we may need or will need going forward. The other challenge is price gouging, of course. What a case or a case of gloves that used to cost us about $40 now costs $140. And yeah, I mean that's the reality now of doing business on the healthcare side. Two other quick things. So yes, we have a geese problem on this campus here in Williamsville. And yes, you've heard me talk about it. This year's particularly bad. I know some of our newer residents are frustrated with the geese problem that we're having. Certainly, they make a mess, no question. I heard, I did not see that a resident, not maliciously, but because the geese are everywhere, bumped one on the road the other day. I guess the goose was fine. It was more jarring, but I wanted to find out what resident did that or had that accident so I could give them a medal. Maybe that particular goose will decide not to come back and we'll be down to one. But we have historically done a lot of stuff to combat our geese problem. We've had dogs here years and years and years with a mixed effect. We've done other things to eggs and so on and so forth, which we will continue to do. So this year, we unfortunately didn't give it as much attention as we probably should because of COVID and all the other stuff that we were focused on. So the problem is acute this year, no question about it. And while I'm not going to go into detail today on what we're going to do going into next year, I can promise you this: we will have a dedicated plan, and it'll involve multiple steps to hopefully significantly lessen the goose problem that we're having this year. One final thing, there seems to be some confusion with some of our residents, and maybe other folks as well, on the difference between antibody testing and antigen testing. And antigen is spelled A-N-T-I-G-E-N. I've been talking about this because and I've talked about it multiple times, most recently on Monday, relative to allowing visitors to come into the community, or more people to come into the community, physically come into our doors here, or come into our buildings, whether it's here in Williamsville or at Gate Circle. The difference is that between the two testing is antibody testing is typically a blood draw. You go in and they take a vial of blood and they analyze that and they tell within that blood draw whether you have had the virus, because as with any virus, you develop antibodies. And so that tells somebody or tells you if you've had it previously, maybe you didn't know. That's an antibody test. Or maybe you've had it and you want to make sure that you develop the antibodies to the virus. So that's the antibody test. The antigen test, ANTIGEN, is a test to tell whether you have the active virus at the point of time that the test is given. So it's the antigen testing that, for instance, all of or about 150 of our employees, including myself, get every single week, mandated by the New York State Department of Health. It's the test that many of you have gotten. The nasal swab test is the primary way it's done. There are other ways, but the primary way it's done is through that nasal swab. And that test, the swab is done and it's packaged, and typically it's sent out to a lab, and it comes back hopefully quickly, as we've talked about, and it tells you whether you are active for the virus at that time. What we're planning on doing is doing that testing here on site and getting a rapid response. So that's what I've been talking about. So it's the antigen test, which with the product that we're looking at would in fact be a nasal swab. And it would be a test that's done with a nurse, and probably, or somebody that's highly trained to be able to make sure it's done correctly. And it's about a 15-minute turnaround time where the test is done. And then 15 minutes you have a result, either positive or negative, for actively having the virus at that time. So that type of testing, as I mentioned on Monday, those type of test kits are being actually distributed by the federal government now to, I think they've identified over 4,000 nursing homes in the very hard-hit areas of the country. I mentioned Southeast, West, and so on. We have been on a list to purchase that type of testing for a couple of months. That type of testing doesn't have official FDA approval because it's so new, but it has something called emergency FDA approval. So even the tests that are being distributed throughout the country by the federal government, again, they don't have official FDA approval, they have something called emergency FDA approval, which is what we would be buying as well. That will allow us to come up with a more judicious, I guess, plan or effective plan to be able to allow visitors to come inside our building, test them on site, and possibly open up our visitation to independent residents more so than it is today. And so more to come on that. I actually have a meeting with a vendor on that tomorrow with Israel DeMarco. I will talk with the resident council about that this week, and let's hope that that's something that technology is available to us very, very soon. That's all I had for today. Again, there's no town hall meeting on Friday, this Friday. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, you can always email me, rwallace@echa.org. Thank you.